The Yaki are gonna get a few new special rules and abilities. Most importantly, their society is now clan-based. It's a very unstable form of government and it's very dynamic. Occasionally you will have this very strong leader, a true Chad, a Genghis Khan, who is rising up and is inspiring all criminals to work for a common goal. And then all the pirates will flock to them, they will share their loot with them and work for them. And this is when Yaki fleet production sees a huge buff. They will be very efficient and build up big war fleets. And those fleets will then go on a big campaign to conquer new sectors and spread many new pirate spawn locations throughout the galaxy. But then eventually comes the time when the sneaky brother of your Chad Genghis Khan backstabs him, and he is much less awe-inspiring. And the Yaki warriors are looking at each other and are like,
why are we still here? Just to suffer.
And then they want to make money and go become independent pirates again. So the global pirate activity will intensify while the fleet production efficiency of the Yaki drops very hard. They are essentially losing men and resources when they have internal problems. And then you can have a balanced distribution between the pirates, and Yaki fleet production is standard. And this works mostly like the base vanilla game. These three different outcomes are represented in phases in the game. And these phases are rather long, so we are not talking about just a few hours, it's more like half a day at minimum. So these are rather long-term developments and you can really feel a change in your galaxy. The entire dynamic will be different. And they are completely random. So there is no guarantee that a certain phase of high Yaki unity will end when the next check for the next phase is made. It can be a strong Yaki phase again, but it can also shift away from the Yakis and the power goes back to the independent pirates. You will never really know what you are dealing with, and each game will be different. The only real indication can be the global pirate population. So when you suddenly see a lot less pirates flying around, then you can bet that they have been recruited by the Yaki and are now building big fleets for them. And on the other hand, if you see more pirates than usual, and you will be able to notice that it's more pirates than usual, so these are no small changes, that means that the Yaki might currently be struggling in replacing their ships. So that might be a good time to attack them and take out some of their sectors, which also act as pirate spawn locations. So these two factions, they now form a very volatile hybrid faction, a criminal super faction, and they can become very dangerous, but it's entirely random. They can also be very weak. Usually they are getting very strong if they start out with multiple phases of high unity, because that allows the Yaki to build up big fleets and then expand, and those new outposts can then spawn new pirates once the power shifts away to the pirates again. And then the Yaki also get a few new tricks up their sleeves. Number one, they never consider themselves to be a weak faction. What is a weak faction? A weak faction in Mayhem 3 is a faction which owns very few sectors. And they won't build big capital ships. They will save their resources and focus on more mobile strike forces, which are able to claim any new neutral sectors, empty sectors, which flash up during the game so that they can rush in and claim this territory quickly. But a weak faction is basically unable to expand on its own. And since the Yaki, when they start appearing later in your game, they are always a weak faction, they don't get that many sectors. In the past they never built real powerful fleets. Now the Yaki are excluded from this special rule. They will always try to build full-sized battle groups. So in phases of high unity, they are able to build powerful fleets, even if their empire is fairly small. Then they also get additional ships, additional cap ships in their battle groups, and that is due to the fact that they don't have access to a real battleship. The real big dreadnoughts like the Ocelot or the Excalibur. They don't have that, they only have standard grade destroyers, so Yaki battle groups can build an additional M2 destroyer and an additional M7 frigate. And these large fleets will form up to perform special deep strike invasions. Yakis don't need a border to attack another sector. They can always invade into distant sectors and strike wherever they want. This ability has been in the game before, but they couldn't really use it well because the duration, how long the invasions last, is fixed. And most invasions of the other factions are happening at the border. The other factions can also do deep strikes, but only under special circumstances, when the other sectors are blocked or the distant sector that they are targeting is somehow prioritized because it's a de jure sector. These are special rules, or if they are blocked by a truce, they cannot attack someone, so they attack the next target behind him. But the Yakis don't have that. They can always and will mostly perform long-range invasions. And long-range invasion means they need more time to actually travel there. And once they are there, they need additional time to actually destroy the factories. So the default claim duration timer was too short for them, and this got increased. So you should now see very, very powerful long-range invasions from the Yaki with stronger fleets, and they will be more committed and try to really push hard and expand. And depending on the phases you roll, the Yaki and the pirates can get really nasty in your game, or they can be rather weak and be wiped out early. But since you start neutral with the Yaki and they are hostile to everybody else, you always have the choice how you want to deal with that problem. And if the Yaki ever grow into a decently sized empire themselves, then this entire mechanic will stop. So they will lose this clan-based society, which is very dynamic and has frequent shifts of power, and then they will have a bit more organized governments and be more balanced. So you have standard pirate spawns and standard fleet production efficiency. But a Yaki outpost will always be a bit more efficient than any other outpost from another faction. That is to make up for the fact that they are hostile to everybody. They usually have a hard time to trade and get resources. The companies are the only factions which effectively provide them with additional production resources. And if the Yaki are a bit more witty and a bit more crafty, I think this is plausible. So they get a slight bonus, but what they can't do is benefit from the new revanchism production boost that we covered in the last video. They don't have a strong national spirit. They will always be more like a pirate empire or a large rebel cell, whatever you want to call them. But the point is, they are part of the criminal underworld and not really a nation in a traditional sense.